Howdy YouTubes, Matt here of Gulf Coast Fit, chilling at the park on this beautiful Monday. Chilling at the park with Gus. He's having a good old time. We're just here in the office playing with sticks, eating apples, playing with knives, chopping some wood for fun. For serious though, just chopping wood for fun, no particular reason. Gus likes to chew on it. Hashtag functional fitness, right? And I'm sitting here working on my shoulder health like I do a lot of the time, because I got some effed up shoulders from having a lot of fun, and thought it would be a good opportunity to make a video that would complement the last video that I shared that was all about band dislocates, shoulder dislocates, to help enhance or maintain good range of motion, a healthy range of motion in your shoulder joint, aka your glenohumeral joint. And so I got to thinking, shoulder dislocates are wonderful for mobilization of that glenohumeral joint, plus your scapulas. Scapulas are a floating joint. Your shoulder blades don't actually attach to anything. They're just floating and sliding around your ribs. And so it's up to us to implement a variety of exercises to increase or maintain good postural shoulder integrity and a well-balanced scapular complex or shoulder complex. And so what I want to share today are my go-to, or at least a handful, several of my go-to band pull-aparts. Band pulls are a great and necessary complement to shoulder dislocates because not only do we want to mobilize the shoulder joints, but we also want to stabilize. All right, we got that yin yang going on. We mobilize so we can move around and do fun things, but we also need to stabilize, which in this case is synonymous with strengthening. And when we stabilize our shoulder joints, then we can enjoy that healthy range of motion in a safe manner and remain as injury-free as possible. When we lack mobility or when we lack stability, then we become very injury-prone. And a lot of what we do in our day-to-day lives, habitual positions that we put ourselves in, really contribute to the degradation of both our shoulder mobility and our shoulder stability. So today we're going to talk about strengthening the shoulder joint, especially the musculature surrounding the posterior side, backside of our shoulders, our external rotators primarily, which are our our supraspinatus, our infraspinatus, and our teres minor. Subscapularis is in the front. Anyway, those three rotator cuff muscles, they help with external rotation. They help open our chest, pull our shoulders back, give us good looking posture that allows us to do things over our head, allows us to play sports, swinging sports, racket sports, throwing sports, or even things like swimming, biking, paddling. I do a lot of paddling on the water. That's my preferred way to F up my shoulders. In my opinion, I'm pretty biased, but in my opinion, paddling is the coolest way to F up your shoulders. And I like to get out on the water a lot, and I put in thousands and thousands of repetitions of internal rotation of that glenohumeral joint, and also with my other arm, whichever side I'm paddling on, a lot of shoulder extension and a lot of downward tilt of the scapulas, tightening of the serratus, pec minor, lats, and a lot of fun stuff we do, whether we're cycling, kind of hunched over, yogaing, even good stuff that's good for us, like reading a book, or doing a lot of yoga on the ground, where you're doing a lot of anterior pressing in down dog or plank-like positions. They can certainly contribute to a hypertonic anterior and a weaker, less developed, imbalanced posterior. So when that happens chronically, you see folks who are kind of hunched over like this, if that's kind of unavoidable for them and they can't really undo that, that's called upper cross syndrome. Upper cross syndrome is where you are weak and tight anterior to posterior in opposing sections. Now that's a whole different video, but basically you're tight and hypertonic in the pecs, pec minor, pec major, anterior delts or your lats pulling you forward. You're weak in your neck muscles. You're tight in the upper back or base of your neck musculature, your levator scapula, upper traps, and then we're weak and underdeveloped in the mid to lower traps, or rhomboids or scapular depressors and thoracic extensors. And we don't like that to happen, because when we get a little bit of a kyphotic posture, then our strength and safety greatly diminishes in everything we do. So we definitely want to incorporate band pulls of all types of movement to our shoulder dislocate routine. So they, in my opinion, are the perfect 1-2 punch for mobilization and stabilization. So let's let me bust out one more shoulder dislocate. Speaking of paddling, I was having a lot of fun yesterday on the water, and I am noticing the backlash from that right here, my internal rotators. So I'll take you through several of my favorite or go-to band pull aparts, and just like a lot of things, I'm gonna scoot you back here a little bit, make sure that you can see me. Just like a lot of things, there's an art to it. There's an art to fitness, and there's a lot of science behind it. And I'll run you through several of my band pull variations that I appreciate and reap the benefits from doing habitually. Just like shoulder dislocates, band pull aparts you can do every day. Really, you can benefit from doing them every single day, because we use our shoulders every day, and it's a low intensity exercise. All of these are pretty low intensity that are appropriate to do for higher volume. And since we have a low intensity, high volume type of exercise, it's not very neurologically demanding. It doesn't really set you back. You might be sore when you try these out the first couple times, but after that, it's really just a maintenance or auxiliary modality, again, to over time even out and create symmetry from the front and the back. So we have good extended spine, shoulders back, nice posture, and we prevent this from happening. All right. Nowadays they call upper cross syndrome text syndrome, because we're all having fun texting and on the internet on our phones. So what we need to do to counter that is watch me on the internet telling you how to undo what you've done and the repercussions from being on the internet so much by watching me on the internet. Let's move on. I should cut that right there. So the conventional band pull is an overhand grip. We've got a pronated grip, and you pull the band apart. You spread your fists apart. You spread your elbows apart. You retract your shoulder blades, and you pull the band slightly into your chest. Pulling that into your chest adds a little bit of resistance at the end. That way we can retract, squeeze the shoulder blades just a little bit more. Now that's what you'll typically see most people doing as far as band pull aparts, and that's fine. I think you can get a little bit more benefit from taking a supinated grip, because we're externally rotating the shoulders, pointing those thumbs outward. And with that external grip, you see that already opens us up a little bit more. Palms up, supinated, open the chest up, pull the shoulders back, and we're really squeezing our rhomboids, our scapulas, squeezing them, trying to pinch your shoulder blades together like you're trying to pinch a pencil in between your scaps. Another good band pull apart that's appropriate to go a little bit heavier on is a band pull down. This is kind of like doing a pull up, or similar to a lat pull down, a wide grip lat pull down. And what we'll do is take a pronated grip, palms facing forward, and you can do this in the front or the back. I like to do them both ways, or alternating within the same set. And you see here we pull the band down across your clavicle, across your upper chest, and once again we're pulling the band across your body for a little bit of added resistance. That way at the very last portion of the band pull, you can squeeze your lats. You're depressing and retracting your shoulder blades. Boom, strengthening the mid-back, the thoracic extensors, and that feels good. And the reason you can go with a bigger band on that, you don't have to, but the reason you can is because you're pulling downward, engaging a lot more of your lats. So when the lats are in the mix, you know that it's probably a big, strong exercise. Let me make sure you're still with me. Yup. All right. So like I said, you can do that in the anterior, pulling it across your clavicle, or you can take it to the posterior. Just tilt your head forward a little bit, pull it down over your upper traps, right at the base of your neck. Boom. Now you'll see that my elbows are slightly bent and they're maintaining a constant angle. So the arms are pretty darn extended, but the elbows are just unlocked. We're not flexing and extending the arms. We don't want the elbow joint to be our focus of operation here. It's not a tricep extension. Your triceps do contract kind of in an isometric fashion, but we don't want the elbow to be flexing and extending. Every band pull we do, the arms are pretty straight, but the elbows are just unlocked, no matter what we're doing. So band pull downs in the front or the back. Boom. I like them both ways, or sometimes I'll go front, back, front, back. And that feels really nice on the posterior delts, getting that downward posterior depression of the scapulas and some adduction. Next up, I'm going to move back down to my red band. Oh, side note, you see I've got a broken band here. When you use bands a lot, which I'm a big fan of using bands most days as part of my training in some way, shape, or form, inevitably you're going to break bands. Don't throw them away, because a broken band can be used for a lot of things, and you can still get some good use out of it, including doing band pulls, especially smaller, weaker type of band pulls, like the one I'm going to show you now. So we're going to do now I'm contradicting what I just said, but the elbows do maintain a constant angle here. But we're going to tuck the elbows in. We're not flexing and extending the elbows. We're going to keep them bent at about 90 degrees. Thumbs pointed out. And you'll see here, the placement of the band is down across my ribs below my chest, as opposed to up here across the chest. So thumbs out, elbows tucked in, thumbs back. So that's a supinated band pull that really relies solely on the external rotation of your shoulders. And when you're really calling into action your supraspinatus, your teres minor, and your infraspinatus, boom. It's like pulling it's like pulling vocab out of my college textbooks. It's a nice refresher for me though. Glad I still remember all that. I should really write this down and plan these videos out before, but I think of something while I'm doing it and boom, I push the play button and do it before I can forget. So the next type of band pull, we just went through a supinated band pull down across the ribs. Again, use a smaller band because that's a weaker type of band pull. The next band pull, I'm just going to stick with this one, I call an X pull. An X pull is a little bit more dynamic. We elevate one scapula and depress the other scapula. So one shoulder or one scapula kind of shrugs up and elevates, the other depresses. You'll notice I'm always keeping tension in the band. We don't want to disengage. We want to always keep tension in the band. That way, the musculature that we're targeting is staying active, whether it's isometrically or whether actually lengthening and shortening when we contract. So an X pull, we want to think about the differentiation in your shoulder blades. One scapula drifts upward, the other tucks downward. So we've got elevation and depression happening at the same time. That way, our scapular elevators and depressors are being called into action simultaneously, and it's kind of like we got this going on. Good brain games, making it a little bit more neurological, which we're always a fan of that. So Another favorite or go-to band pull of mine is something called, I like to call a spotlight. And I'll actually stick with this red band, but I'll double it up and use both layers of the red band. These spotlights, for some reason, they feel really great for me. And like I said, my choice of shoulder annihilation is paddling. And in paddling, I'm doing a lot of internal rotation and a lot of flexion. That's extension, a lot of extension of the arm. So I get tight and rounded, things get clicky. That ball and socket joint gets misaligned, kind of starts to rub into itself, and I hear a lot of popping and snapping. And these spotlight band pulls seem to help me out a lot. And what I'll do is kind of a partial band pull, and then I'll make circles going outward and forward. So I'm making external circles, smaller. Sometimes I'll go smaller and make them a little bigger and bigger until I'm kind of running into myself and I can't make them any bigger. And then I'll reverse that and maybe start big and gradually make smaller circles. So the range of motion is not very great here. You see from the side, making circles forward or circles backwards. But that kind of pulsing motion where I'm flexing my traps and rhomboids, flexing my rear delts, you can take a supinated grip for a little more external rotation and working the external rotators. And that kind of pulsing motion allows me to do a lot of volume, and a lot of volume is just what I do when I'm paddling and kind of incurring this asymmetry. And so since band pulls are not appropriate, out of the picture, since band pulls are not really appropriate to do for low volume and high intensity, since we're addressing small, weak, a lot of the time underdeveloped and injury prone muscles, we don't want to go so heavy that you can only do a handful of reps. It's not appropriate to do a set of 5 heavy band pulls. You're likely to actually injure your shoulders or tweak your rotator cuff muscles if you go about it in that approach. An exception to that would be if you were doing isometric band pulls. Like let's say I've got this purple band and I want to do a set of 5 isometric band pulls. Let's say I've got a supinated grip and I spread and pull into my body and I'm holding this isometric contraction. My entire back is flexed for 5, 10, 15 seconds, and I bring it forward and go back into it. So it's like every single rep is like a set in and of itself. Then yeah, doing 5 strenuous band pulls might be more appropriate, but it's not strenuous because of how heavy we're going. It's because we're holding an isometric contraction. Let's see. Those are most of my go-tos. Here's another one I like. This one's called a sword pull. Some people call it a sword pull, or there are other names for it too, but go with sword pull. So we're holding kind of a neutral grip on the top and the bottom, and we pull diagonally across our anterior, across the chest. Once again, I'm using my body for a little added resistance, keeping tension in the band. You'll see how this is similar to the X pulls, boom, where we're doing this, only we've got palms both facing in, which is enough of a difference to feel like you're doing a different exercise. Plus, you'll see here with these sword pulls, I guess the sword pull and an X pull are variations of each other. This is single-sided, you're doing one side at a time, so you need to flip it over and bust it out the other way. I'm pretty anal about keeping things even, so I'm going to run through a full set here. It feels nice having my bottom hand pronated and my top hand supinated, because I feel how that's working the triceps and deltoids in the bottom arm, and it's working more of the anterior medial delts and your biceps in the top arm. Again, a little bit of multitasking going on. Never a bad thing to focus on all of these small nuances of the auxiliary work that we're doing. So let me bring you back in here for a sec. Like I was saying, you can get pretty creative with your band pulls, just like you can get pretty creative with your dislocate variations. And it's very common in society nowadays to have an overly kyphotic posture from that anterior cross syndrome, or tech syndrome if you want to call it that. But there's a multitude of reasons that people incur these issues, whether it's from cycling and bending over on your bike, or doing spin classes. Swimming is another one. That's something I've experienced. I swam competitively for a number of years, and all of the internal rotation and extension of your arms, whether you're doing breaststroke, butterfly, freestyle, backstroke kind of undoes that. That's pretty nice. We got one out of 4 is kind of helps even out the imbalance. But good healthy activities such as doing yoga, being down in a prone position, bearing your weight with the anterior delts, pec major and minor, tight serratus, and so forth. Things that are very beneficial and healthy for us can contribute to something like an asymmetrical posture or weaknesses in certain parts of our musculoskeletal system. So band pull-aparts in conjunction with shoulder dislocates, that's a really great 1-2 punch that can help undo that. Again, this is smaller auxiliary or accessory work. When you really want to get stuff done, do some big heavy rows, and this makes for a good warm-up. Pull-ups, heavy lat pull-downs, heavy rows, dumbbell rows. That's the stuff that's really going to kind of permanently fix what's going on. However, auxiliary work like this, you can do it day in and day out. Doesn't take as big of a toll on your nervous system, and so it's kind of a daily trickle of medicine, and it's a sustainable way to address shoulder health. So hope you learned a thing or two today. Thinking if there's anything else I forgot. Oh, that feels good. Well, that's something I can add in. So bands and resistance training of all sorts, using tools to help with your intention, your fitness intention is always good, but just moving your body in and of itself is the ultimate and most basic approach. So you can go through all of these motions with or without bands, no matter what you're doing. Externally rotating, boom, flexing your back, mobilizing your scapulas, contracting the posterior. You could run through all of these exercises and movements with no bands. You're still going to get a lot of the benefit. It's really up to your mind-body connection to contract and control your movements how you want to, and you can still get a lot of the benefits. Now, a band or a dumbbell or whatever resistance or external, force that you're imposing on yourself, that's simply a tool to help get the job done. But you don't have to have all of the tools in the world to be productive. They help get the job done, but not necessarily required. So again, hope you learned something. If you do any type of band pulls or shoulder dislocates like I demonstrated in the last video, show me, hit me up, DM me, share in the comments, and let me know. I like to learn from people. Everything I learned was from other trainers and fitness professionals or people that I look up to in the world of health and fitness that I've acquired and equipped myself with over many years since I was a kid and I first started getting into fitness. So hope you have a great day. Matt and Gus here again, making 7 minutes of content, last 24 minutes. Once again, I'll work on that a little bit, but again, everything's just word vomit and brain vomit, and I do it before I forget about it. So thanks for listening. Check you next time. Bye.